CustomMix or multitracks.com is an inexpensive way to get access to original master recordings that also include a click and guide that you can use in Ableton Live. Now, I've talked many times before on this channel about the benefits of using stems or multitracks and why that's the thing you should be purchasing or creating of your own content. But if you're limited in budget, CustomMix is, again, a good way to get access to that original master recording. And most importantly, a recording that includes a click and guide. So what I want to talk about in this video is how do you use custom mixes in Ableton Live? So if you've purchased a custom mix from multitracks.com, how can you load that into Ableton Live, format it in Ableton Live, and use it live on stage? So let's walk through all the settings and everything we need to do in order to make this happen. Now, the first thing we're going to do before we even really do anything with the files itself is double check one setting in Ableton Live. So I'm going to go to Live's Preferences, which is Command, it's Control, if you're on a PC. And I want to go to, under Preferences, I want to go to the Record Warp Launch tab. And on the Record Warp Launch tab, we want to go to the Warp Fade section here. And we want to make sure Auto Warp Long Samples is disabled. So right now, see how it says off. That's exactly what we want that to look like. Okay. So that feature is turned off. That basically means we don't want Live to guess at what the tempo is of this file. We want to drag it in and we want to tell it specifically, hey, this is the tempo of our file. So now let's close our preferences. The next thing I would suggest doing is going over to Live's browser. So you can click the Show Hide button in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. And you want to go to wherever your file is. So I've actually got my file on the desktop here, but if I wanted to specifically add that file folder, I could go to the Add Folder option here, go to Desktop, and then click Custom Mix and hit Open. Okay, and that's going to give me direct access to that file. This is a nice way to access your file without having to go to Finder and to switch back and forth to drag in between. You could do this both on Mac and PC as well. So the next thing I need to do is enter my tempo in Ableton Live. Now, I don't know the tempo of this song right off the top of my head, but thankfully I've got this pulled up over on Multitracks, and Multitracks does a great job of giving us the info that we need for this song. So looking at this, my BPM is 72.50 and my time signature is 6.8. So we're going to go back into Ableton and we'll change our time signature to be 6.8. Not 6.16, let's do 6.8, and then let's go back to our tempo, 72.50. Now a point on our tempo. First, let me show you. I'm going to go up here and just type 72.50 in Live's global tempo. A point on this that I always want to make, whenever you're using content from Multitracks or Loop Community, or maybe from another artist or producer that was given to you, and it's at a weird, half decimal kind of tempo like this, 72.50 instead of 72.73. When you're warping your content, I always encourage you to start at the original tempo, so leave it at 72.50, but then really quickly thereafter, we're going to change it to 72 or 73, and we won't have to deal with this decimal anymore. But we're going to at least start with our tempo plugged in, 72.50. Our time signature is plugged in at 6.8, and we're almost there. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is go to my actual file, and let's press Tab to go over to Arrangement View, and I'm going to select my click track up top here. We're going to click Command to select our guide cue, and then we're going to click Command to select just this file here that says .wav. And actually, if we look at the 4 file types that are included in this, we get a click track, we get one that says the song name, the album name, and it says auto panned in parentheses. Then we get one that's just a stereo wave file and then a guide cue file. What we want to bring into Ableton Live is our click track, our stereo file, and our guide cue file. So the way, again, that I'm clicking around, let me show you again the way I'm accessing these. So I go to click, or whatever is the first in your list. I'm holding Command. On a PC, you would hold Control to individually select each of these, okay? So I've got 3 files loaded in. Get a click, guide, and then my stereo file. Now I'm going to drag this into my live set. And as I'm dragging this, I'm going to hold Command. So I'm going to keep my finger on the trackpad. I haven't let go. I'm going to hold Command, and this is going to place each of these 3 files in its own audio track. Okay. And then I'm going to delete this extra content here. So I'll click on this track. I'm going to hold Shift to go up to the top here and delete that track. Okay. So now I have my click track. I have my stereo file here, and I have my guide cue file. So I'm going to go actually to the stereo file, and we'll rename this Homecoming Stereo. Maybe Stereo Custom Mix, just so I know like where this is from. Okay. So those files are loaded in. And we've got them in separate tracks in Ableton Live. And this is going to be super important in just a second to get. But the fact that we have these separate files is super important because we want to keep click and guide separate from our stereo file. And what's really nice about the stereo file is it's all of the content. It's not auto pan. We had the one that was auto pan that's like click and guide to the left and everything else to the right. This is the full stereo file, and we want to make sure we have access to that. So with the content loaded into our live set now, let's warp this because this is going to give us lots of flexibility. So I'm going to click the bottommost track here. I'm going to hold shift, and I'm going to go up to where click track is the last track that I have selected. Okay. So now I'm going to hold shift and double click. All right. So it says 3 audio clips and 3 tracks are selected. So I want to enable warp on these. I'm using live 11.1, but the process is exactly the same. It just looks a little different if you're on live 11 or previous version of live. So I'm going to go to audio and I'm going to click warp. Okay. So next thing I'm going to do is change from beats here. I'm going to change this to complex. Okay. I don't have tons of time in this video to explain why, but essentially complex is the best warp mode that's best for full song content. So this is just one of those, just trust me in this, right? Enable warp and enable complex. So now with this song loaded in, the first thing I'm going to do with my song warped is I'm just going to zoom in here on the click track, and I want to make sure that the click track is on the grid. You could see that this is lined up on the grid. I do not zoom to the point where like I'm seeing this. I just look at the beginning and then I scroll over here to the end and I make sure that's still on the grid. What I do just as this is a Will Doggett best practice. I go to the last downbeat of my song and I double click to create a warp marker there. And I just drag that to make sure that's lined up and locked in. And it is. If for some reason your click is off grid, then you could double click to create warp markers to drag it on grid. This would be if there's a time center or a tempo change, that's when you would see your click off grid. And it's really easy to lock that into Live's grid as long as you have the click track and you're using that essentially as your reference, which is good. Okay, so we've got our file warped. We've got our click track loaded in. We have our main multi-track file here, and we have our guide cue locked in here as well. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to assign a tempo to this. And again, we're going to start with 72.50 as kind of our starting place. But I want to save my tempo so that as I drag this file between Ableton sets, the tempo is going to come with it. And natively in Ableton Live, that does not happen. If you go up to Live's master tempo up here and add that in, or if you go down to the master track here and automate your tempo using the master track, so I could press A, show you mixer song tempo. If I add my tempo there, that's not going to carry over between my live sets. So the way that we do this is by using something called a tempo track. And I want to save you time. I don't want you to have to create a tempo track from scratch. So what you should do is head to fromstudiotostage.com/template. You could download my free tracks template that you're about to see me use to format this track and walk through this with me, literally from scratch, walk through this process together with me. So again, head to fromstudiotostage.com/template to download that template and follow along. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over to this templates folder that I've conveniently already added to my browser. I'm going to go to free track template, and I'm not using Ableton Live Intro, so I'm going to go to this top one here. I'm going to click the arrow to the left of that template and the arrow to the left of the live set. And then you see we have this tempo track here. So I'm going to go to tempo and I'm going to click and drag this in. Okay. Then I'm going to zoom in a little bit to find the end of this. I'm going to put my mouse at the end. I'm going to click where we see that little bracket. I'm going to drag while pressing minus to zoom out. And I want to make sure my tempo runs the entire length of the song. So even if you need to go like a measure or so past your song, that's perfectly fine as well too. Now you'll see this little note on the tempo track here that says enter tempo and segment BPM. I'm going to scroll down here and it says BPM 50. We're going to type in 72.50. But again, if you remember, I did mention we're going to start at 72.50, but we're going to change this. I don't want to stay here. So we'll come back to this in a moment and actually change our tempo. But for now, we're just going to do 72.50. We're going to click where it said follow and change that to lead. If you're on a previous version of Live, it'll say slave and click it and it will change to master. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is start to make this kind of match my my template that I have, my free tracks template up here. So I'm going to move my tempo up here. I have a click track loaded in, and if you go into the free tracks template click up here, we have a click that's in 6/8. And if I wanted to, I could go in and drag this click. I'll show you what I would do if I wanted to. I could go in and drag this click. It's in 6/8 as well too. It's going to lock into the grid, and everything should be in time to lock into that if I want to. I'm not going to use the click in the template for now. I'm going to use the click that was included with the file. It's the same click sound. Multitracks uses Foundations as their method and way to generate a click sound, which is what I used, which is a metronome I created years ago to create click sounds in Ableton Live. So for this one, I'm actually fine. So let's solo our click. This is what it sounds like. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so we're in 6/8. So that works for me. So all I'm going to do in this particular instance is I'm going to rename this click track to match what it would look like in my template. So I'm going to click on the track here. I'm going to do Command R, and I'm going to type click. Okay. So that's going to change that to click. So I have click. I now have tempo. Next thing we have here is guide. So if I'm using the tracks template and I open up guide, you could see we have all these different guide cues loaded in where I could drag out my guide cue and kind of map out my song. Let's listen to what the original guide cue sounds like though.
2.
Okay, so we get a 2 measure count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, then we have our section here.
Verse 1.
So at this point, it's personal preference. For the sake of time, I'm going to leave the guide cue that they have. But if you were to use the guide cue from the tracks template, and I do suggest generally that you do this because I think it's important that your guide cue matches for all your songs. So if I was going to do that in this case, then what I would do is
Verse 1.
Let's hear what they have. Let's start from the beginning again.
1.
So they have 1. So I would just drag my cue in here. 1.
1.
Okay,
2.
then 2. And then they're just going to count sequentially starting at 1 up to 6. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Okay. And let's just listen to that and see what that sounds like.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, so I don't think I'm perfectly on the grid there. Let's listen to the click. I think I messed that up.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So this is not Ableton's fault. This is my fault for not paying attention. So let's nudge those on grid, and 6 is way off. There we go. So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
There we go. 6 seems a little off, so I would even trim it
6.
and nudge it a little more. There we go. Perfect. So then if we listen
Verse
here,
1.
verse 1. So again, if I was doing my cues, I would go in here and we could say verse, and we could replicate verse 1 by saying verse and doing 1 like that.
Verse 1.
And you can move this kind of wherever on the grid you want. Maybe something more like that.
Verse 1.
Okay. So that's an option there. What a lot of folks do as well too. In 6, I don't know that I would necessarily do this, but they'll count into it. So they would say like verse 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could add this in. Let's hope that I actually got this cue just right. We'll delete this little leftover guy there.
Verse 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right, and then we're into the verse at that point. So if you want to do that with cues, there's nothing wrong with that. But the point is we want to make sure that at least our file structure matches our template. So even if you don't add the cues from my tracks template, I think 2 things are important. File structure, it must be a consideration. We have to make sure that our file structure is exactly the same so that we can build our template really quickly. That's super important. But then 2, at least make sure your guides are all the same across all your songs. Don't have, if you have a song from Loop Community, one from Multitracks, one that's a custom one, use the same voice across all of them. That's just being a good music director and being a good pastor to your team. Okay. So let's get our file structure right here. So we've got click and we got click. We've got tempo. We got tempo. We got guide, and I have my stereo track here. So let's move guide up here. Okay. Next is markers. So markers is a brand new track. Similar to tempo track, this is a hack that's going to allow you to save your locators, your song sections between your songs. So you always know exactly where you are. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to click markers. We're going to drag this in, and I'm going to move this up above my stereo track here. Okay. So now I have click, tempo, guide, markers. I don't have an original track, but even though I don't, I'm going to drag this track in here so it lines up. And then I have my custom mix here. Okay. So for Homecoming, just this custom mix. Now, what I want to do for markers is I want to go throughout this song. We'll do a few of these for the sake of time. Maybe we'll do all of them. I'm going to go to the end here and I'm going to unfold markers track. I'm going to go to the end and I'm going to click and drag all the way to the beginning of my song. I'm going to do Command Shift M. If you're on a PC, it's going to be Control Shift M. Now, normally, and this is a reason why, another reason why I suggest buying stems. And if you're buying stems in a church context to use on stage, you should buy them from multitracks.com, because when you do that, you get a Ableton Live session with locators with your file loaded into it. When you buy a custom mix, you only get the just audio files, which isn't the end of the world, but it makes what we're about to do a little longer of a process. So what I'm going to do now is we'll close our browser here just to get a little more visibility. I'm going to expand my guide queue and I'm going to look for every time I have my guide in my song. Okay.
1, 2.
Okay. So that's going to be called
1,
Count
2,
Off.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay. And this will be my intro. So I'm going to go to my first break here. I'm going to click right where the grid kind of intersects with my markers track. And I'm going to do Command E to split that. It'll be Control E if you're on a PC. Then I'm going to do Command R and I want to rename my first section here. And I'm going to call this Count Off. Okay. And then I'm going to click on this one, do Command R, and we'll call this Intro, because there's my intro. Now, what I'm going to look for is my next guide cue, because that's going to tell me where my next song section is. So this, I think, is verse.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
Okay. And then I'm going to go a measure out from that verse. So we'll go right here. We're going to do Command D. We're going to move our arrow to the right, Command R, and we're going to type verse. Okay. Now, this process, if you've seen me do this before, if you've watched my video on how to save song sections by creating a markers track, again, I walk through and formatted loop community praise charts, multi-tracks content. This is going to be a little different because I don't have locators in my file, but here's what the process is going to look at. Let's go to our next one. Let's listen to that, see what it is.
Verse 2.
Okay, so that's verse 2. So let's go a measure out from there. We're going to split Command D, move arrow to the right. You don't have to add verse 2 in. You could just say verse again if you wanted, but we'll jump to our next one. Press play.
Chorus.
Okay, chorus. And we'll jump up measure here. Command E to split. Right arrow. Command R to rename. And then we'll say chorus. Okay, let's go to this one, see what we have.
Vamp.
Vamp. Something I like here, if you don't like what Multitracks calls it, you know, they say vamp if you wanted to make it. And this is an argument towards using your old guide cues. If you want to turn it into turnaround, you could go to guide here and say, yeah, we're not going to make that vamp. We're going to make it turn. And I'm going to drag that in. And now it would say
Turn
instead of guide or instead of vamp, which is kind of nice. So again, that's an argument for why you should use your own custom guide cue there. But again, we'll split this now. We'll call this vamp. And I bet we're about to get back into the verse here. Let's listen.
Verse 3.
Verse
Drums
3.
in.
And I personally don't like all of this stuff, so I'm going to select it here. I'm going to hit 0 to deactivate that. I'm going to take that out.
Verse 3.
Verse 3 though. So we click that. We'll do verse 3. All right, and let's keep, again, kind of keep trucking along, see what we've got
Verse 4.
Okay. Verse 4. All right, so I'm just going to finish this song out. If you want to skip ahead, you can. Build, I'm not going to add. I don't want that. So I'm just going to keep working through here and let's see what we have. So there's our chorus.
In.
Again, I'm going to take all in out. So if you want to skip ahead, feel free to. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep working here. So there's chorus. What do we have now?
Chorus.
Another chorus. Skip a measure ahead.
Interlude.
Interlude. Deactivate that. Okay, interlude. This is the kind of work I call this, like, we'll save this in a second. This is what I call like Netflix work. Like if you're watching
Bridge
Netflix
1.
and watching a movie or something sitting on the couch, this is the kind of work you do just kind of mindlessly.
Interlude.
As you're like watching something,
Bridge 1.
half paying attention. I mean, you do want to pay attention. Otherwise you start to make careless mistakes, but it's something that's pretty mindless
Bridge
that you
2.
can just kind of work on as you go. And you just follow this process and just go throughout the rest of the song. And split this up kind of as you want to, which is cool. Okay, let's see what this is. Bridge 3. And we'll go measure out. The nice thing about this too.
Build.
Build, we don't need.
Break.
Break.
Chorus. All.
Okay, that's way too many things at once.
Chorus.
Chorus.
All in.
All in. Okay. Add chorus in there.
Refrain.
Refrain. Refrain. Okay. What do we have
Refrain.
here? Another refrain. Okay. And then we should be getting close to the end here. Vamp.
Breakdown.
Vamp and breakdown. We'll get rid of that. We'll do our vamp here. Another note I should mention, I'm just soloing the click and the guide and not playing the track. That way YouTube doesn't try to take me down or demonetize the video, which they're notoriously bad about.
Vamp.
Vamp. Another vamp. Let me guess. Vamp.
Refrain.
Oh, refrain. Okay. What's really nice about this is I do this once. I never have to do it again. This song is taking a little longer because I think it's like a 7-minute song.
Bridge 1.
And it's a Bethel song, so it's got to be about 12 to 17 minutes on average.
Bridge 2.
But again, I'm just going to do this once, and I never have to do this process ever again. That's why I like running tracks in Arrangement View. It's like it's why I like
Bridge 3.
this kind of
Build.
process. Again, way too many guide cues for my preference
Bridge
here.
3.
Bridge 3. So we'll split that. Okay, so we're almost done here, and then we'll talk about saving this and what we're going to do. Break.
Chorus. All in.
Chorus all in. We'll get rid of that, and we're just going to do this. So again, super close. We're almost there.
Refrain.
Refrain. All right. What do we have here?
Ending.
Ending. Praise God. We're almost there. But we probably come back in at the end, right? Oh no, we stayed out. Wow. An ending that's actually an ending. It's truly a Easter miracle. So what I've done here, I've gone throughout my song. I've used the guide, the cues track kind of as a reference point to say, okay, what are my song sections? I figured out what they are. I've gone in and I've added this markers track here. And this is, again, going to let me kind of save my song sections for each part of my song. And then later I could go in when I drag this in to add my locators in to use this with the song to repeat, to have freedom and flexibility kind of later on. But at this point, my song is pretty much set. I'm feeling happy with this. Now I need to do the most important thing, which is save. Do as I say, not as I do. You should be saving throughout the process. I kind of waited to the end here, which is fine. So what I'm going to do now is do Command S to save this. I'm going to save this to the desktop. I would suggest saving this to like a songs folder somewhere. That's separate from your sets. You can manage it separately. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to say Homecoming is the song. I'm not sure what key. Well, it says C. Is it actually in C? Yeah, actually in the key of C. So we'll do C. And then right now we'll leave this to 72.50. I did promise that we talk about how to change the tempo. So let's do that next. So we'll save this. Most important piece here, and this is something that people miss all the time. They reach out and say, Will, Live is always constantly losing my samples. Will not lose your samples if you do this religiously. And I mean, every time you have a file, you do this. So what I'm going to do, I'm at the end of my project. I've brought content in. I've saved it. Now I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to do Collect All and Save. And that's going to serve two purposes. One, it's going to go and find samples that were in other folders. So my original like CustomMix folder from multitracks, if I'm using any samples from, in which we are from our free track template, it's going to take all those, bring them into the Live project, but then it's also going to do something else. So let me open my Finder here. Just show you what this looks like. Okay, perfect. So if we go over to the Finder, now we have this Live project here that says Homecoming C 72.50. And if I go into this Live project folder, I have the samples folder, which is what Live went and grabbed all those things and brought them into one place. So I have one file that I can then share with people, move to from a studio computer to a stage computer, however we want to do that. So what I would do when I go to share this file, I could right click and do compress to create a zip file and then share that with people. But make sure you're sharing the project folder, not the just .als file. Okay. So I did promise we would talk about tempo. So how are we going to change the tempo for this? So if I press play on this just for a second, I'll unsolo this just for a second. I'll try to catch it before the full song plays so that YouTube doesn't fuss at me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So there's our intro. we're at 72.50. I'm going to go to my tempo track here. This is how easy it is to change tempo in Arrangement View. And this is why I like doing this, using this tempo track, because I could double click here, go down to where it says 72.50. Ain't nobody got time for that. So we're going to click and change this to 73. And then we're going to click from lead. It's going to go back to follow. And then we're going to go back to lead. So now if I press stop and I save this and I press play now, let's listen.
2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, so everything's in time, but it's now at 73 BPM as opposed to 72.50. What I would do is I would probably go and save this live file and adjust it. You could see in the file name here, we have 72.50. I would go and save that and adjust that so that the file name now becomes, Homecoming C 73 BPM, so that that's updated and has everything I need. Now, what's great from here, I can then take this, I can use this in an Ableton Live set. I can use my tracks template and apply the 3-part framework for using tracks to build my set. And again, it took me, we're at 26 minutes for this tutorial. That's with me talking a lot and taking my time. But I could format the song in 5 minutes if I really just focused and just did it. And then with that 5 minutes worth of work, I can then turn around and build a live set of multiple songs, how many ever songs I want, and probably 5 minutes or less again. So I did this work here once, adding in a click, tempo, guide, markers, original track, and my CustomMix file. I did that work once so that I never have to do it again. That's the beauty of this system. And if you're a worship leader who wants to run tracks on stage, again, you need to do it in a way that's stable and in a way that's flexible. It gives the ability to jump around, to repeat song sections, to really quickly edit your song. But you need to do it in a way that's efficient. You don't want to spend your entire Saturday building your Ableton Live set to get prepared for Sunday. And the only way you could do that is by applying what I call the 3-part framework for using tracks. And part 1 of that is to have a template for live performance. And you saw me reference this earlier in the video. But if you want to use the free tracks template that I offer completely for free, hence the name, free tracks template, then head to FromStudioToStage.com/template. You could share your name and email, download that template. I'm going to send you videos that walk you through how to format an Ableton Live set. And I have a 5-part series where I show you how to format content from multitracks, loop community, praise charts, as well as songs downloaded for free from Live Church. And now using CustomMix files from multitracks.com. And I show you how to take that template to format those songs, and then show you in a 5-part series how to build a Ableton Live set for worship of multiple songs. So I'm going to send you all that material completely for free. All you have to do is take the first step, go to FromStudioToStage.com/template, share your name and email, and you can download that completely for free. And every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central here on the channel, I share content specifically related to running tracks on stage as a worship leader every single Wednesday. And then every other day, I share content at 10 a.m. Central. Fridays is focused on tracks. Mondays is behind the spacebar. Tuesdays is all about troubleshooting. And every single day, there's brand new content. And that comes out at 10 a.m. Central. But to make sure you see that content, you've got to click the subscribe icon on this channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified when we post new content. Now, posting something every day at 10 a.m. Central is a lot of content. Not every piece of content is going to relate to you or sound interesting to you. So what I suggest is hit the bell icon so you're notified when it goes live. Download the YouTube app on your phone and just look at the notification when you see it come through. And if it sounds like something you're interested in, then click through and watch it. And if not, ignore it and watch the next one. But thanks so much for watching this video. I'll see you on the next one. Again, every Wednesday is content focused on worship leaders and related to leading worship. But every single day is something brand new, 10 a.m. Central here on the channel. Take care. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Bye. Bye.